The clock struck midnight when the sirens wailed, cutting through the heavy silence of the abandoned street. Isabella's heart raced as her abuser loomed behind her, rage boiling in his eyes, ready to silence her forever. In a moment of sheer desperation, she blinked twice at the cop standing just a few feet away, a silent plea for help. Within seconds, the officer was tackling her attacker to the ground, handcuffs clicking into place. She had narrowly escaped a life of torment, a life she never thought she would have the strength to flee. My name is Isabella. I chose to survive against all odds. The chaos of the moment began to settle as I stood there, shaken but safe. The officer, a sturdy figure in blue, had just restrained my attacker, and the adrenaline coursing through my veins felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I could hear the distant wail of sirens approaching, but for now, all that mattered was the weight of my breath returning to a more manageable rhythm. I turned to see my mother, Sarah, rushing toward me, her expression a mix of fear and relief. The worry lines on her forehead deepened as she reached my side, pulling me into a fierce embrace that left me breathless. "Isabella, oh my God, are you okay?" Her voice trembled, and I could feel the warmth of her tears soaking into my hair. "I'm fine, Mom, I'm fine," I assured her, though my heart felt like it had been through a storm. I glanced back at the officer, who was now speaking into his radio, his focus shifting to the situation at hand. My mind was racing, trying to understand what had just unfolded. I had not just survived, I had done something. I had taken action. Ethan, my younger brother, stood a few feet away, his wide eyes filled with confusion. He looked so small and vulnerable, clutching his toy dinosaur as if it could shield him from the harsh realities unfolding around us. I could see the innocence in his gaze, and it struck a chord deep within me. I wanted to protect him from the shadows that threatened to engulf our family, to keep him blissfully unaware of the dangers lurking just beyond our doorstep. "Isabella, what happened?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just some bad guy, but it's all over now," I replied, forcing a smile to reassure him. My words felt hollow, but I needed him to feel safe. I could sense the tension in the air, the anxiety radiating from my mother, and I didn't want that to taint Ethan's world. He deserved to believe that everything would return to normal. As the officer finished his call, he approached us, a calmness surrounding him despite the chaos. "You did well, young lady," he said, looking directly at me. "Your quick thinking likely saved your life." I nodded, still trying to absorb his words. It felt surreal, as though I were watching the scene play out from a distance. "Thank you," I managed to reply, my voice steadying. The officer offered me a small smile before turning his attention back to the scene, bringing order to the chaos that had erupted so unexpectedly. My father, James, arrived moments later, his face shadowed with worry. I could see the conflict in his eyes, a reflection of the struggles he had fought against for so long. "Isabella, are you okay?" he called out, scanning the scene for any signs of injury. His tone was both demanding and protective, a mix of instincts I had come to recognize over the years. "I'm fine, Dad, really," I said, stepping toward him. I needed him to understand that I was okay, that I had handled the situation on my own. But his hands shook slightly as he reached for me, and I could see the weight of his past weighing heavily upon him. "Let's get you home," he said, his voice low but firm. I could feel his desperation to shield us from the darkness that seemed to cling to our lives like a shadow, always just a breath away. I wanted to reach out and tell him that I was ready to face whatever was coming, that I wouldn't allow our family to be torn apart any longer, but the words caught in my throat. As we made our way back to the car, I felt the eyes of the onlookers following us, their curiosity mixed with concern. I could hear murmurs behind me, whispers about what had happened. The world felt different now, as if the fabric of our reality had shifted, exposing the raw nerves that lay beneath. I could see Sarah's shoulders tense as we approached the vehicle, the weight of her protective nature evident in every movement. Once inside, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken words. James started the engine, his jaw clenched as if he were battling an internal storm. I wanted to break the silence, to bridge the distance that seemed to grow with each passing second. "Dad, I began, but he cut me off. Not now, Isabella," he said, his voice strained. I glanced at Ethan in the back seat. He stared out the window, lost in his thoughts. I wanted to tell him it was okay, that he didn't need to worry, but I didn't know how to reassure myself, let alone him. At home, the air felt heavy, laden with the secrets that had been buried beneath the surface for too long. I could sense the tension between my parents, their unspoken fears lingering like ghosts in the room. Sarah busied herself in the kitchen, an attempt to regain some semblance of normalcy, while James paced the living room, his mind clearly racing with thoughts I couldn't grasp. I ventured to Ethan's room, seeking solace in the innocence of his toys and the comfort of familiar surroundings. I plopped down on the floor, allowing my mind to drift back to the moments that led to this evening. The violence I had witnessed felt surreal, a nightmare I couldn't shake. I wanted to forget, yet the image of that man's face was imprinted in my memory. "Isabella?" Ethan's small voice broke through my thoughts, and I looked up to find him standing in the doorway. "Are you really okay?" I smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through me at his concern. "I promise I am," I said softly, wishing I could convince him entirely. He crawled onto the floor beside me, clutching his toy dinosaur tightly. "Can we play?" he asked, innocence radiating from him like a beacon of light. "Sure," I replied, grateful for the distraction. As we began to play, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Maybe, just maybe, we could emerge from this stronger. I would protect my brother and help my family heal. The path wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face the unknown. As Ethan and I continued to play, I tried to push aside the unsettling thoughts swirling in my mind. My fingers moved mechanically, guiding the dinosaur through a make-believe jungle, while my heart raced with a blend of fear and determination. How could I protect him from the darkness that seemed to creep closer every day? I glanced toward the window, half expecting to see shadows lurking outside, but all I saw was the fading light of day. The sky painted hues of orange and purple, a beautiful facade that masked the turmoil beneath. "Look, Isabella, the dinosaur is flying!" Ethan exclaimed, his laughter echoing off the walls and filling the room with warmth. I couldn't help but smile at his joy, even if it felt bittersweet. His innocence was a fragile shield against the harsh realities that surrounded us. I wanted to preserve that light for as long as possible. "Flying dinosaurs are the best," I replied, trying to keep my tone cheerful. I had to be strong for him, even when I felt like crumbling inside. Just then, the front door creaked open, and I turned to see my mother walking in, her expression weary but calm. Sarah carried an air of determination that seemed to wrap around her like a protective cloak. "Dinner's almost ready," she announced, but the hint of tension in her voice didn't escape me. "How was your day, Ethan?" she asked, kneeling down to his level. He launched into a story about our dinosaur adventures, and I watched as her smile grew, momentarily pushing the shadows away. I could sense the weight my mother carried, the unspoken worries, and the fierce love that drove her to shield us. She was strong, but I could see the cracks beginning to form. The burden of keeping our family together was taking its toll, and I felt helpless to ease her struggles. I wanted to talk to her about what I had seen, about the fear that gripped my heart, but the words were lodged in my throat like a stone. After dinner, we gathered in the living room, the three of us sharing stories and laughter, while James lingered in the background, deep in thought. His eyes seemed distant, haunted by memories that I could only guess at. I noticed how he would sometimes look at my mother with an expression that was both loving and regretful. I wanted to ask him what was wrong, but the thought of prying into his pain felt too daunting. "Dad, do you want to play with us?" Ethan chirped, breaking the silence. I watched as James hesitated, a flicker of conflict crossing his face before he forced a smile. "Maybe tomorrow, buddy. I'm a bit tired right now," he said, his voice faltering slightly. Ethan's enthusiasm dimmed, and I felt a pang of sadness for my brother. He didn't understand the weight of our father's burdens, and I wished I could make it easier for him. As I sat on the couch, I pondered how our lives had changed so quickly. One moment, I was just a girl navigating the challenges of adolescence, and the next, I found myself entrenched in a battle for my family's safety and happiness. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, balancing on the edge of my responsibilities as an older sister, while trying to keep my own fears at bay. The room fell silent as James retreated to his study, closing the door gently behind him. I exchanged glances with my mother, who sighed deeply, her eyes clouded with concern. "He's struggling," she whispered, "but I know he loves us." "I know," I replied, wishing I could fix everything for her. "Maybe we should talk to him." Sarah shook her head, a flicker of determination igniting in her gaze. "Not yet, Isabella. He needs time. We need time. Let's just focus on being a family for now." I nodded, but uncertainty gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the brink of something larger than ourselves, that the violent act I had witnessed was only a ripple in a much bigger wave. I felt the need to confront it, to find a way to protect my family, but where would I begin? The next morning, I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. I slipped out of the house, the crisp air biting at my skin as I stepped onto the familiar streets of our town. I passed the bakery, the aroma of fresh bread wafting through the air, and paused for a moment to inhale deeply. A small pleasure, a brief escape from the turmoil in my heart. As I walked, I couldn't help but replay the events of the previous days in my mind. The way the police had arrived, how the world had shifted on its axis with that single blink. I wondered if I could ever truly convey the gravity of what I had seen to my parents, or if I would carry that weight alone. My feet guided me to the park where Ethan and I used to play. I settled onto a bench and watched as children laughed and ran around, their carefree spirits a stark contrast to my heavy heart. Just then, I noticed a familiar figure in the distance, a police officer on patrol. My pulse quickened, the memories flooding back as I instinctively tucked my hands into my pockets. I wanted to approach him, to ask about the incident, but doubt held me back. What if he dismissed me? What if I put my family in more danger by speaking out? I pulled my knees to my chest, grappling with my fear and the desire to stand up for my loved ones. In that moment, I realized that I couldn't let my family face this alone. If I was to protect Ethan and help my parents navigate through this dark time, I had to find my voice. I took a deep breath, feeling a flicker of courage ignite within me. It was time to face the unknown and confront the truths that lay hidden in the shadows. With renewed determination, I stood up from the bench, ready to take the first step toward uncovering the answers we desperately needed. The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. I would fight for my family no matter the cost. If you enjoyed this story and want to follow Isabella's journey, consider subscribing for more updates and chapters to come. The moment I stepped out of the shadowy confines of the park, the sun pierced through the clouds, illuminating the path ahead. The brightness was almost blinding, yet it felt like a beacon guiding me toward answers. I glanced back to see if Ethan had followed. He was a few steps behind, his small frame dwarfed by the towering trees. I forced a reassuring smile, though my heart raced with worry. I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were being watched. As we walked towards home, I replayed the events of the previous days in my mind. The violence I had witnessed wasn't just a one-off incident. It was part of something much bigger, something that threatened the fragile peace of our lives. My father's name had come up in hushed conversations I had overheard, snippets of whispers that hinted at his past, a past he had fought so hard to bury. Each fragment revealed a deeper layer of complexity, intertwining with our present in ways I couldn't fully grasp yet. When we reached the house, the familiar scent of baking cookies filled the air. My mother, Sarah, stood at the kitchen counter, her hands dusted with flour, but her face bore the unmistakable weight of worry. She looked up as we entered, her smile faltering for just a moment. "How was your day?" she asked. Her voice carefully light, as if she was trying to hold the fragile fabric of our family together with words. "It was fine," I lied, not ready to burden her with the truth. Ethan chimed in, excitedly recounting how he'd found a new nest of baby birds, completely oblivious to the storm brewing beneath our roof. I loved his innocence, but it also pained me. He deserved to grow up without fear, to explore the world without the shadows of adult troubles looming over him. As my mother stirred the cookie dough, I caught her stealing glances at my father, who sat hunched over the dining table, his brows knitted in concentration as he scrawled through his phone. He was physically present, but mentally he was miles away, possibly revisiting memories he would never share with us. I could sense the tension in the air, a silent battle raging within him as he navigated his thoughts. It was as if we were all players in a play, each one of us acting out our roles while the true script remained hidden. After dinner, I slipped into the living room while Ethan was busy with his toys. I wanted to talk to my father, to try to understand what was going on in his mind. His eyes met mine, and for a fleeting moment I felt a connection. But the silence that hung between us felt heavy, like a wall separating us from the truth. "Dad," I started, unsure of how to voice my concerns, "can we talk?" He hesitated, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. "Isabella, not now. I'm busy." His tone was gentle, but there was an edge to it, a warning that he wasn't ready to confront whatever it was that was weighing on him. I felt a sting of disappointment, but nodded anyway, respecting his wishes. I could feel my mother's eyes on me from the kitchen, silently urging me to give him space. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with thoughts. I couldn't shake off the events from the park. The fear that had gripped me when I saw the violence unfold. The image of the police officer, his eyes locking with mine, flickered through my mind. I had reacted instinctively, blinking twice, hoping that it would convey my fear and urgency, that it might somehow alert him to the danger nearby. I didn't fully understand the power of that moment, but it felt significant, like a thread connecting me to something larger than myself. The next day dawned cloudy and dull, mirroring my mood. I decided to take a different route to school, steering clear of the park that had become a tangled web of memories I wasn't ready to face. As I walked, I noticed the familiar sights of my neighborhood, children playing, neighbors chatting, the comforting rhythm of daily life. But everything felt different. There was an undercurrent of unease, a whispering reminder that normalcy could shatter in an instant. In school, my friends noticed that I was off, their smiles fading as they tried to draw me into their conversations. I forced a laugh, but it felt hollow, as if I was wearing a mask. During lunch, I found myself gazing out the window, lost in thought, when a familiar figure caught my eye. It was a police car parked at the edge of the school lot, and my heart raced. Had they come looking for me? I quickly looked away, not wanting anyone to see the worry etched on my face. Later that afternoon, as I sat in the library, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to do something. I needed answers, not just for myself, but for Ethan and my mother too. With every breath, my resolve solidified. I would confront the darkness that threatened to engulf us. Just then, a soft tap on my shoulder pulled me from my thoughts. It was my friend, Mia, her brow creased with concern. "Isabella, are you okay? You've been really quiet." Her genuine concern warmed my heart, and I took a deep breath. "I'm fine, just thinking about some things." I could see she wanted to press further, but I quickly changed the subject, drawing her into a discussion about our favorite books. It was a brief escape, but I knew I couldn't hide from the truth for long. As the day drew to a close, I felt a surge of determination. I would protect my family from whatever darkness loomed ahead. I wouldn't let fear dictate our lives any longer. I was ready to face the challenges and uncover the truths that could save us all. Little did I know that the choices I would make in the coming days would change everything. As I lay in bed that night, the shadows in my room felt heavier than usual. The darkness seemed to press against me, reminding me of the secrets that swirled just outside my window. I could hear the faint sounds of my parents arguing in hushed tones, their words barely audible but laced with urgency and fear. I wanted to ignore it, to bury myself in my blanket and pretend everything was fine, but I couldn't. I had already crossed the line from innocence to awareness, and there was no going back. My heart raced as I thought about what I had witnessed earlier that day. The violence I had seen was etched into my mind, a permanent reminder of the dangers that lurked in our seemingly quiet town. I turned to face the wall, squeezing my eyes shut as if that would block out the memories. I had to think of Ethan, my sweet brother, who deserved a childhood free of these harsh realities. I needed to find a way to protect him. When I finally drifted off to sleep, I was jolted awake by the sound of a door slamming. My body tensed as I sat up, straining to catch the low voices of my parents once again. "It's not safe for them, Sarah," my father's voice cut through the stillness, thick with tension. "I can't keep living like this, not after everything." I felt a lump form in my throat. I wanted to rush to him, to assure him that I could handle whatever was coming, that we were stronger together. But what could I say? I was just a teenager with too many fears and not enough answers. The next morning, I found Ethan playing with his toys in the living room. His laughter was a welcome sound, but it felt like a fragile bubble that could burst at any moment. I sat beside him, pushing my worries aside to join in his games. "Look, Isabella, I built a castle!" he exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. I smiled, trying to match his energy, but my mind was elsewhere. What if the secrets my parents were hiding threatened our little world? I wouldn't let that happen. Later that afternoon, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I needed to think, away from the weight of the house that felt like it was closing in on me. As I strolled through our neighborhood, I noticed the familiar sights. The old oak tree where Ethan and I had spent hours climbing, the bakery where Sarah would occasionally treat us to sweets, and the park where I often met up with my friends. But today, everything felt different. The laughter of children seemed distant, overshadowed by the fear that had crept into my heart. As I sat on a bench in the park, I noticed a man standing by the entrance, watching me intently. His presence sent a shiver down my spine, and I felt an overwhelming urge to leave, but something inside me told me to stay put, that I needed to understand what was happening. My instincts had kept me safe so far. I couldn't abandon them now. I watched as he began to approach, his steps slow and deliberate. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for whatever was about to unfold. "Isabella, right?" he said, his voice steady but low. I nodded, unsure of who he was or why he was speaking to me. "You saw something the other day, didn't you?" My heart raced, the realization hitting me like a wave. This was someone who knew. My mind raced with the potential consequences of acknowledging that. I didn't see anything," I stammered, every instinct screaming at me to walk away. The man studied me for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly as if weighing my response. "Listen," he continued, "I'm not here to hurt you, but you need to know that there are people who want to silence you. You have to be careful." My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to ask questions, to demand to know who he was and what he meant, but my voice faltered. Instead, I met his gaze, willing myself to remain strong. I couldn't show fear. It would only encourage more threats. "Why should I trust you?" I finally managed to say, defiance creeping into my voice. The man sighed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Because I want to help. Your family is in danger, and you're part of it. If you don't take this seriously, it could cost you everything." My mind reeled at his words. I thought of Ethan, of Sarah, and James. What could they be caught up in that I didn't understand? "I'm not afraid of you," I shot back, though my insides churned with uncertainty. He chuckled softly, shaking his head as if he found my bravado amusing. This isn't about me. This is about your family. They need you to be brave. His words struck a chord deep within me. I understood now that my role had shifted. I was no longer just a bystander. I had to protect my family, even if it meant facing truths I wasn't ready for. With a last look of caution, the man turned and walked away, leaving me with a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. I needed to talk to my parents. I had to convince them that we couldn't ignore the threat looming over us, no matter how terrifying it seemed. As I walked home, the weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders. I wasn't just a sister or a daughter anymore. I was the guardian of my family's safety, and I was determined to rise to the occasion. As I entered the house, the atmosphere felt thick with an unspoken tension. My mother, Sarah, was in the kitchen, the rhythmic sound of chopping vegetables a stark contrast to the storm brewing in my mind. I could see her glancing at the window every so often, her brow furrowed with worry, and the sight tugged at my heart. I knew she was anxious about our safety, just as I was, but I had to find the right moment to bring it all out into the open. Ethan was in the living room, sprawled out on the floor with his toys, blissfully unaware of the shadows that danced at the edges of our lives. His laughter felt like a beacon of innocence, a reminder of what was worth protecting. "Isabella, you're home early," Sarah said, her voice brightening as she turned to face me, though I could see the fatigue etched around her eyes. "How was school?" "It was fine," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. I didn't want to alarm her just yet. "I was thinking we could have a family dinner tonight, just the four of us." Her smile faltered slightly, but she nodded. "That sounds nice. I'll make your favorite pasta." The way she distracted herself with cooking made me feel guilty, as though I were forcing her to shoulder a burden she had no idea was weighing heavily on me. I needed to shake off my apprehension and speak up before the opportunity slipped away. "Mom, can we talk?" I finally blurted out, my voice low and steady. She paused, her knife hovering midair, and turned to me fully, concern etched across her face. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" I hesitated, glancing toward the living room where Ethan played, lost in a world of make-believe. "It's about Dad and everything that's been happening." The air seemed to thicken with unspoken fears, and I felt my heart race as I continued. "I think we need to take this seriously. There's more going on than we know, and it might be dangerous." Sarah set the knife down and wiped her hands on a kitchen towel, her expression shifting to one of intense focus. "What do you mean?" she asked. Her voice suddenly quiet, as if she feared the sound of her own words. "I saw something terrible," I admitted, recalling the moment that had changed everything. It involved someone at school, and it was linked to Dad. I don't know all the details, but we can't pretend it doesn't exist. We need to figure out what's happening before it's too late. The color drained from her face, and I could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. "Isabella, she began, but I interrupted her. "Please, just listen. I can't lose you or Ethan. We need to stand together as a family. We can't let this divide us." My voice cracked slightly, and I felt a surge of vulnerability washing over me. Just then, Ethan wandered into the kitchen, his wide eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What are you guys talking about?" he asked, oblivious to the tension that had settled in the air. "Nothing, sweetheart," Sarah quickly replied, kneeling down to ruffle his hair. "Just some grown-up stuff." I watched her, the way she effortlessly shifted her demeanor to keep Ethan shielded from the darker realities of our lives. It was admirable, but I knew it wouldn't last forever. "Mom," I pressed, my voice steady, "we can't keep him in the dark forever. He deserves to know the truth too, even if it's scary." "I know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what if that truth puts him in danger?" I took a deep breath, wrestling with the weight of her words. "Then we need to figure out how to protect him, together. I don't want to live in fear anymore. We deserve to feel safe in our own home." The silence hung heavy between us. each second stretching out like a lifetime. Finally, Sarah nodded slowly, a reluctant acceptance in her eyes. "You're right. We need to face this head on. But I want you to promise me something." "What is it?" "Promise me that you'll stay close to Ethan and watch over him. I can't lose either of you." "I promise," I said, feeling the gravity of my words settle into my heart. "We're in this together." Just then, James walked through the front door, his expression unreadable. He sensed the tension in the room immediately, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between us. "Dad, we need to talk," I said, my heart pounding. He raised an eyebrow, his body tensing slightly as he braced for what was to come. "About what?" I took a step forward, steadying my resolve. "About everything. About the danger we're in and how we're going to confront it as a family." As I spoke, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, but I also felt a spark of hope. If we could face this together, maybe we could reclaim our sense of safety and belonging. It was time to confront the shadows of our past and fight for our future. "Isabella's right," Sarah added, her voice firm. "We can't let fear dictate our lives. We need to stand united." I watched as James's expression softened, the conflict within him flickering like a flame. Perhaps this was the moment we could begin to heal, to reconnect as a family. As we all gathered around the kitchen table, I knew that together we would find the strength to face whatever lay ahead. With each heartbeat, I felt the weight of our shared resolve, and it reassured me that we were not alone in this fight. We would share our stories, our fears, and our hopes, and through that honesty, we would find the courage to move forward. If you have a story about family strength or overcoming adversity, share it with someone. You never know how your experience might inspire others to find their courage. Together, we can all navigate the shadows and emerge into the light. The days after that pivotal encounter with the police officer were a blur of emotions, and each morning felt heavier than the last. I found myself waking up with a knot in my stomach, the weight of our family's unspoken troubles pressing down on my chest. My thoughts drifted constantly to the violence I had witnessed, replaying the scene like a broken record, and I struggled to find a way to make sense of it all. I could see the shadows of fear creeping into my mother's eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly as she prepared breakfast, and I knew I had to be strong, not just for myself, but for her and Ethan as well. One evening, while Sarah was busy in the kitchen, I took Ethan by the hand and led him outside. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow across our backyard, which felt oddly peaceful against the chaos swirling in my mind. I watched him chase after fireflies, his laughter filling the air, a stark contrast to the tension that clung to our home. It was in those moments that I found a sense of purpose. I realized I had to protect him from the realities that were closing in on us. As I sat on the porch steps, watching my brother with a heavy heart, I remembered my father, James, and the countless times I'd seen him staring off into space, lost in thoughts that seemed to drag him away from us. I hadn't seen him smile in days, and the sight of his worn face was a constant reminder of the struggles he faced. My parents had always shielded us from their burdens, but the walls of our home felt thinner now, and I sensed that the secrets they held were starting to bleed through. That night, as we gathered for dinner, I decided it was time to confront the growing divide between us. I looked at my father, who sat at the head of the table, his gaze distant. "Dad," I started, my voice steady despite the fear in my chest, "can we talk about what happened? I mean, really talk about it." I could feel Sarah's eyes on me, pleading for me to tread carefully, while Ethan chewed his food, blissfully unaware of the seriousness in my tone. James looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Isabella," he said slowly, "there are things you don't understand." "Maybe I don't understand everything, but I know we can't keep pretending everything is fine," I interrupted, my heart racing as I took a deep breath. "I need to know that we're safe. I can't keep living like this, not knowing what's out there." The room fell silent, and I could see the tension mounting in my parents. My mother's expression was a mixture of concern and resignation, as if she knew this conversation was inevitable. James ran a hand through his hair, and for a moment I thought he might turn away, but then he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "You're right, Isabella. We need to talk about it. I didn't want to burden you with my past." His admission hung in the air, heavy and poignant. "But it's already affecting us," I replied, my voice firm but gentle. "I love you, and I want to help. I can't do that if I don't know what's going on." With a defeated sigh, James began to recount some of the decisions he had made years ago, choices that had led to shadows chasing him even into our quiet town. I listened intently, feeling each word wrap around me like a thin veil of understanding. I realized that the man I thought I knew was a mosaic of fear and regret, and I wondered how long he had been carrying this burden alone. As he spoke, I glanced at Sarah, who remained quiet, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I knew this conversation was tearing at her as much as it was healing. I reached out, squeezing her hand gently, reminding her that we were all in this together. Ethan, sensing the change in atmosphere, looked between us, confusion etched on his young face, and I wondered what he would take away from this moment. James's voice grew more animated, and I could see the flicker of shame in his expression as he recounted the threats that had haunted him. "I thought I was protecting you by keeping you away from my past. But now I realize I was only building a wall between us," he said, the weight of his admission palpable. "I'm sorry for that." His words sparked something within me. I knew I couldn't let fear continue to suffocate our family. "Dad, we can face this together," I said firmly, finding strength in my conviction. "You've been carrying this alone for too long. We're stronger as a family, and together we can find a way through this." Tears slipped down my mother's cheeks as she nodded, finally breaking her silence. "We have to stand together, even when things get tough," she added, her voice trembling but resolute. "We have to be honest with each other, no matter how difficult it is." In that moment, I felt an electric shift in the atmosphere. The darkness that had loomed over us began to dissipate, replaced by a flickering light of hope. We were still standing on shaky ground, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we had taken a step toward healing. As the evening wore on, we talked more about fears, dreams, and the importance of sticking together. Laughter began to weave its way back into our conversations, and I could see Ethan's confusion turn to curiosity as he listened to us share stories of resilience. Each shared moment felt like a brick added to the foundation of our family, reinforcing the bond that had been fraying. It was only the beginning of a long journey, but with the first steps taken, I felt a surge of courage ignite within me. We were ready to confront whatever lay ahead, together.